Handlebars does support layouts, but it works a bit differently than it did with Pug. First of all, we have to configure something. In app.js, where we register our handlebars engine, we have to pass in some options. Now, my IDE helps me here. If I hit Control Space, it shows me which options I can set. And you can, of course, explore the official docs to learn all about them. Now, what it allows me to do here is it allows me to set up where my layouts live. So in which folder I can find my layouts. Let's set this here to a string, which by default is views layout. So you don't need to set this, but you can set it kind of to reconfirm this. But this is redundant. You only need to set it if you would store it somewhere else, like in lays, or if you had a different default views folder. I'll set it to this, even though that is the default, so that you see that setting. Now you can also define a default layout that should be used for all files. And here I'll just name it main. And that means you will have to have a main, or main layout in my case, you will have to have a main layout.hbs file in your layouts folder. So let's add a main layout.hbs file in the layouts folder. And let's set it up similarly to the Pug layout. And that was, of course, influenced by the 404 page. So let's copy over the 404 HTML code into the main layout HBS code. And first of all, page not found, of course, we want to output this dynamically here. We'll output the page title here with the handlebars handlers. Now, regarding the styling, in Pug, we defined a block where we could dynamically add the content that should be rendered from inside the view that extended this layout. Unfortunately, HBS doesn't have such a feature. So we can't do that. We can't define a block here. Instead, the only thing we can do there is we can define a placeholder with 3 curly braces, opening and closing. So not the normal double curly braces, but 3 curly braces. And then adding body here. And you have to exactly use this placeholder. This is understood by handlebars, and you will then be able to target this in your views that extend the layout automatically because you set it as the default layout. However, if you have some part like this where you need to add some styling depending on the page you are on, you will have to solve this differently in a kind of a similar approach as we solved the active class here in Pug. You will have to add an if statement here in your main layout. And this is, of course, a bit of a more cumbersome or complex way, though you can do way more with handlebars. You could define custom helpers that help you with that, but this is beyond the scope of this course where I just want to give you a brief introduction. So let me show you the easiest way of solving this. And this is that we add an if block here, and we check if product CSS, and if this is the case, let's also close the if statement here, then I will add a link to my product CSS file, and I will repeat that same logic, of course, for forums. And again, as I said, this is the easy solution, but it will do for now. So forums, and here we have forums CSS. So this is working now. Now, what regarding the active class? We also want to add that dynamically, right? Well, we can simply add the class here, and I add my handlebars handlers here, and I add an if statement and check if active shop is true, and this is a variable we'll have to pass into this view. If that is true, then I'll add the active class, and of course also close my if statement, so you can also write this in line. That is an important takeaway. And I'll do the same for the add product route here, where I check if active add product is true. Of course, we'll have to make sure that these variables are also passed into the view, at least when they're needed. If you don't pass them, they're always treated as false, so you only need to pass them if you want to have them treated as true. With that, our layout is prepared. Now let's go back to the shop.js file to start with that. And as I just mentioned, we now have to pass in active shop. This is this variable or this property we're checking for here in the if statement. And we should set this to true for this route to ensure that for this route, the active class is added. So let's set this to true, and therefore in the main layout, this will be true, and therefore active will be rendered. active add product would be false because we don't pass it at all, and therefore this would not be rendered. So that is that. Now, of course, we also need to make sure that the product CSS gets rendered. So we need to pass in this too. So back in shop.js, let's also pass in product CSS and set this to true. So you can already tell you configure a lot from inside Node Express when using Handlebars, and that is its philosophy. So now with that set up, we can go back to the layout, have that finished, and move over to shop HBS. Now this will use the layout by default. You could disable this by going to the render function for a given page and setting a special layout key and setting it to false. This is a special key that is understood by Handlebars, and it would not use the default layout. Otherwise it will. So since it will do that by default, in shop HBS we can get rid of this entire code here, including the header, and just have in this file what should be injected into our triple curly brace body tag in the main layout. So here, whatever should get entered in this place should be added to shop HBS and nothing else. So with that, if we save this and we go to the shop, you see we got an error, and the error is a bit annoying, to be honest, with Express Handlebars. It's looking for the main layout.handlebars file. So it does not take .hbs here. And for whatever reason, you explicitly have to tell Handlebars to do that differently. You have to go to the options and set the extension name, which only applies to the layout and not to all files. Just as this applies to all files but the layout, you have to set the X name here to HBS. This is really strange, but it is how Express Handlebars works. So now we're setting the extension to HBS for layouts too. And now if we reload this page, we see our normal shop page. And with that, we can of course also go to add product, here add product HBS, remove everything but the part which should be rendered in the place of our body, triple curly brace body tags. And if we reload, something's missing, right? Do you know what went wrong? Well, we're missing some styles, and the reason for that is that we need the forms. And for this, however, we need to ensure that forms CSS is set to true. We will also need product CSS, by the way. So in admin.js, we should ensure that when we render this route, we set forms CSS to true and product CSS, this one, product CSS to true, and that we also, to get that active link in the navigation, that we also set active add product to true. Because active add product is the key we're looking for here. With that, if we save all files and we reload here, this is looking better, and now it's all working again with Handlebars. So as you can see, Handlebars uses a different philosophy, definitely something you have to get used to. Therefore, your templates are leaner, and there is no better or worse way of doing this. It really is up to you which one you prefer. Let's now have a look at a third option, EJS, which is my personal favorite.